So today I want to talk about what's the move, Texas, and all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Today, I want to talk about what's the move for Texas after getting a remarkably good win, 69-31. You could say nice. I'm probably not going to say nice, except to say, it's nice for Texas. Sam Ehlinger finishes with 274 yards passing, 20 of 27, 2 TDs. But Bijan Robinson is looking like the second coming of Cedric Benson and Ricky Williams. 9 carries, 172 yards, 3 tutties. Looking like the guy who was the 5-star recruit and the number 1 tailback in the 2020 class, who was averaging damn near 18 yards per carry and routinely putting up 300-yard rushing performances and then some. Add to that, Roschon Johnson also looked good, getting 14 carries for 139 yards. Both of those guys got more exposure, with Keontae Ingram choosing to opt out and go the grad transfer route. They played a Kansas State team that's not very good and is not healthy. Will Howard, 16 of 27, 2 picks. Deuce Vaughn, 10 rushes for 125 yards. He's going to be a problem for some time. And as much as I want to talk about how good that was for Texas to get a win in this most tumultuous week for Tom Herman, I don't know that that's going to be enough to save his job. They got a game that is probably going to get made up against Kansas, where they expect to go 7-3 for the year, perhaps play a bowl game and end 8-3 in a very odd COVID pandemic year. Tom Herman was asked about his job security and said, look, I spent a lot of time on the chive and I played a lot of words with friends. Don't really mess with the internet all that much, so it's easy to stay above the fray. I applaud him for that because I don't know what else he's supposed to do, right? I don't think he's supposed to be just scrolling Twitter, watching all of us talk about him and seeing the hashtag extend Tom Herman with these terrible examples of, well, just how mediocre Texas has been. But I was just taking a look at Texas and having a conversation with my buddy Steven about this. Steve was just, he's a Texas fan, and we were just talking about it soberly. And it dawned on me, Oklahoma has an opportunity to win its 6th consecutive Big 12 championship. 6 in as many years. They get a W against West Virginia and Baylor tonight. Play Iowa State, who's one of the only 2 teams to beat them this year. Texas has won just 3 Big 12 titles since the Big 12's inception in 1996. 3, right? The last one coming in 2009. It's just not a good look for Texas and Texas fans. And then you continue to go down, and it feels like anything on either side of the Mack Brown era is about what Texas is. That Mack Brown era is just kind of a blip, because you can go 15 years in either direction now without winning a national championship. And you can go 15 years, in that other direction behind Mack Brown, not just get there, but you got to go to 81 for the last national championship that was unclaimed by Texas, and taking it all the way back to the DKR era for the last one that everybody says they won, including them. I don't know that that's going to make Texas fans feel better. I also understand if you want to get somebody else and your heart is set on Urban Meyer, it doesn't feel like that's going to happen, right? If it was going to, I think that it would have been done by now. And I think he would have intuited that this is something that he wants to do. The question becomes for me, who are you going to go get after this? And we can have lots of conversations about throwing stuff at the wall. I continue to make arguments in either direction about this. People are going, what about Matt Campbell? All right, first of all, that's a Northeastern Midwestern guy who was coaching at Mount Union, played at Mount Union, coached at Toledo, and is at Iowa State. And if he wins a Big 12 championship at Iowa State, why would he want to leave Iowa State to go to Texas? It just doesn't make any sense on that front, right? There's been some talk about James Franklin and his relationship with Chris Del Conte, but, I think that he wants to stay at Penn State, and they got their 2nd consecutive win in as many weeks. They beat Rutgers, but, starting 0-5, you'll take whatever W's you can get if you're James Franklin. And his buyout is $30 million, $38 million. It's just enormous. Tom Herman's is half that, right? You're also facing a $53 million budget shortfall. So at this particular juncture, I'm more inclined to think that Texas might hold on to Tom Herman than they would get an Urban Meyer, right? If you're giving me those two options. Is there a lot to go in between? Absolutely, 100%. And there's any number of things that could happen between now and even Texas playing Kansas. But I think that unless you had somebody lined up, ready to go, you're not going to open the escape hatch for Tom Herman to, go get paid $15 million to cut his grass. And as much as we talk noise about Tom Herman, there are a couple of things that I do want to say about the Mensa member. He's remarkably good as an offensive coordinator, and we know that. We know that at Ohio State. We know that at Houston. We also know that he's a remarkably adept recruiter. Ed Oliver going to Houston and not anywhere else as, perhaps the most dominant player on the defensive side of the ball coming out that year, being able to make Greg Ward into a fringe Heisman finalist. I think the only thing that we might knock him for is for sticking with Sam Ehlinger for so long, but when you know what Sam Ehlinger's character is and you know what he means to Texas and what Texas means to him, it makes it difficult for you to go to a guy like Casey Thompson, right, who I think is going to be a better quarterback. I don't know that he's going to be the same sort of leader, but do you need him to be the same sort of leader? No, you need him to go and win you football games. And while Tom Herman has also been very clear about we've been in a lot of close games ain't going to cut it, right? You need to win those close games. It feels like all of those close games or most of those close games just aren't going their way. And they've had not enough blowouts, especially in the Big 12 era or in Big 12 conference play, to really justify a conversation around those close games that they have played. I was even, again, talking with Steve about this, and Gotti was very clear, look, go back to that 2018 season where Texas goes 10-4. They beat Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry, but, they get doubled up by Maryland. You lose there, you lose at home. I mean, you're really not in a good space there. And it felt all the while Sam Ehlinger was your ceiling. If that dude would have been able to make it to another level where we start to talk about him the way that we're talking about Heisman finalists, you're probably looking at a different sort of Texas team, especially with the kind of talent that they've been able to pull in, again, under Tom Herman. I think these are all things that need to take into account. And while I get that all of the Texas fans are very hot and very angry and very annoyed with Tom Herman, they've been wanting to see him go, I just don't see how it's going to get better if you change it. One, you don't get the guy you want, Urban. And two, you want to blow it up and start again just 4 years after you blew it up and started again, which is not too long after you blew it up and started again with Mac Brown. At one point or another, you got to question whether or not it's you or it's the coach, or maybe you just got to have more patience and ride this thing out. Is it going to get easier? Probably not, because Oklahoma is probably going to come back at 21 as a juggernaut and finish pretty strongly in recruiting with an opportunity to finish with a top 5 class in 2021. So there's a lot to talk about there, but I did want to get this on tape and give us all something to talk about in the comments. All right, that's it for me. Doses.